Hello, I'm Janine Crownover from Delphix, and I'm here with my counterpart from Solutionsoft.
Hello, I'm Dragan Trajkovic from Solutionsoft.
And we're going to be providing a quick demonstration of using a virtual clock in conjunction with the Delphix Dynamic Data Platform for virtualization. So let's get started. We'll start first with Dragan explaining the Solutionsoft components.
Thank you, Janine. What you see in front of you is our management console, basically a graphical user interface you would use to manipulate Time Machine. How Time Machine works is that it intercepts date and time calls that your application, your database server, app server would make to the system, and it returns virtual time instead of system time. No system time is actually modified. It just makes your application believe it's seeing virtual time. So typically, in order to properly time travel an application, you need to time travel all the components that are involved with it. And usually it's the database server and the application server. To do that, in a situation where those servers are on distributed systems, you need to also use the sync server. So I use the management console to connect to the sync server, which is another product from our suite. And the sync server uses a concept of so-called sync groups to group together all the targets that you want to simultaneously time travel in your environment. So I have here a sync group that has two targets. One of them is a Linux target, and on that target I have the Oracle user marked as the one that owns the Oracle database, because once you create a virtual clock for a certain user, all the processes running under that user will be affected with virtual time as well. The second target in our sync group is the Windows target, and the Windows target has a user Delphix target, which happens to own the SQL Server database instance running on that machine, and it also is owning the process of the application server, Apache server. So time traveling that one user will affect both Apache and the SQL server. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to enable this sync group, and once it is enabled, the sync server will effectively create two virtual clocks and send those virtual clocks to respective targets, Linux target, Windows target, and affect only the users that we specified, in that way isolating virtual time to only parts of the system that we desired. So right now we have created those virtual clocks, and we can proceed to check how our applications and database servers are affected.
Thanks, Dragan. So let's show you what we have here on the Delphix platform. As you can see on this screen, we're going to be working with the Suite CRM break-fix application, and I'm going to show you how the application interacts with the time as well as the Delphix engine. And we also have, I believe, the Oracle, my Oracle break-fix running as well. So in this case, you see that we've done a few tests with the time clock, but let's show you October 17th is what we took most recently prior to starting. But now I'm going to take a snapshot of the Windows application. We have a Suite CRM running on that target application. When I take a snapshot, you're going to see that it's going to come up with that system virtual clock that Dragan has created. I'm also going to take a snapshot of the time. And why this is important, with the Delphix capabilities, if a user is running a test that needs to age an invoice, they're going to take a test, they're going to take a snapshot of that. So they can always get back to that November 1st time frame. It's just showing you that Delphix is creating that. We're not losing any of the other times. We're actually going to go and revert back to the October 17th time frame. But first I wanted to show you, as you can see, it has detected the November 1st from the Delphix engine. It's taken a backup of the database, it's taken a backup of this database at the same time as the November 1st. And it shows in time sequence. You can always get back to that date. You can always get back to the current date. So let me show you from the Delphix, or from the actual Linux server, how the Delphix user and the Oracle user interact as well. So within that, I'm going to minimize your screen here. And this is what we have here. We have the Delphix user on Linux. So if I select the date from the Linux server, right, it's showing October 17th because Dragon did not move Delphix. He moved the Oracle user. So if I switch user to Oracle, you'll see that the Oracle is showing the November 1st time frame and all its database running underneath that system is running. If I exit out and log into the database from the Delphix user, again, I'm the Delphix user, it's showing current time. I can log in. Let's see, secret plus in here. Get that right. And then if I select sysdate, it's showing you the November 1st because Oracle is running on there. And so I'm exit out of here, and then I'll go back. So that's just a simple review. And oftentimes, in any test situation, you're going to have multiple databases. You'll have Oracle, you'll have SQL Server, you'll have many systems talking to one another. So it's important that you're going to migrate that seat group that he's created. You would identify all the components in that testing requirement or that development environment. So let's show you how an application would interact with that. Showing you the Delphix and the database components and backing up. But let's say I wanted to, let's just say I wanted to interact with my application. Let's make a few changes here. Let's actions. My actions. I'll duplicate this record, and what's going to show you is that as I add the new user, it's going to take that system time, and it's going to show you that this user was created at a particular time, the system time actually. So let's go with new test. Just make some few changes to make it accept the changes to the user based on the components. Go here, .com. Just need to have a unique email address. Let's go with different states. And then as I save this document, if I change the appropriate fields, and we'll go view that. So we now have a new test created, but if I look then at my contact list, you will see that it has been created with the new system data. So if there's any testing you're running, aging invoices, like I said, or just checking on different times that a test would require. And I know, Dragon, you can do many things with the time clock. Speed clock, can you talk a little bit about some of the features that the time itself can do besides just setting a new date in the future?
Well, yes. First of all, it's important to mention that the sync server has, like I mentioned, the part of the Time Machine suite that broadcasts virtual clocks to multiple remote targets. It has a built-in API, and it allows you to fully automate your testing. So you can use basically any programming language that can make simple web service calls via HTTP or HTTPS, and you can perform the things that I've shown in an automatic fashion. So you would enable the sync group, in that way creating virtual clocks, and you could integrate that into your own scripts, and basically you would enable the sync group, get virtual time, and then you're part of the script when you would, I don't know, enter records into databases, and then finally when everything is done, you would revert back to system time by disabling a sync group. So typically, depending on the environment that you have and the complexity of that environment, you would need to have Time Machine installed on all the systems that you want to see time traveled. And of course, if you have multiple separate distributed systems, you would also need the sync server to achieve all of that.
So why is it important with Delphix in this clock? Because as you see, I have a time flow available for all the various databases that I have virtualized on Delphix. And I can go back and forth on those times through my time checks here, my snapshots that I take. So what Dragon's going to do now is he's going to revert back to the system time. And while he's doing that, I'm going to want to go back to my latest snapshot that I took at 9:45 so that I keep in sync. So that what I've done on November 1st, the testing and the validations I've done for that clock that's been moved forward, I'm done with that. Now I want to go back to my current time. And everything that I've done in there is going to be saved. I can always go back to November 1st to get that record I created. But I'm also going back to the current time so I can do my normal testing. And that's the value of Delphix, right? You can move between the snapshots of the database itself and retain a record of what that database looked like at any time. So Dragon, you want to go ahead and move us back to the time.
Okay, so I have just selected the option to disable the sync group, and in that way to remove the virtual clocks from the respective targets, which I just did. And you can proceed with checking how that affects the systems.
So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reactivate this October 17th that I took prior to our demo. And it's going to say, yes, I want to go back there. It's going to rewind this database. So you'll see that the records that I created, I can still get back to it by activating the November 1st timeline. But first I'm going to go ahead and stop this application, get myself back to the snapshot I took prior to this demonstration, and show you that I can continue as normal without a clock interruption. The interesting thing to note, if you notice, we didn't have to stop the database, we didn't have to stop the server. I just continued business as usual from that point on, which is, to me, is very, very flexible for being. When I was doing this without something like a virtual clock, I'd have to call the sysadministrators, I'd have to shut the Oracle database down, they would reset the clock. I was never able to get back and forth as easily and as agile as using something like a virtual clock. So let's see if my application is reversing itself, right? So it's now reversing itself, going back to, it's rolling back that system to that point in time. While that's rolling back, I can show you now that I can take an Oracle snapshot. Remember, I took the November 1st snapshot. If I go in here and I take a snapshot now, you're going to see it has gone back to October. And you'll see it pop up on my time frame there, and then now it's showing back at the October time frame. And what Delphix is doing on this snapshot is it's taking the snapshot of the file system, so it's reaching into the Oracle user, taking a snapshot of the file system. That's why it's so quick, minutes, and very easy. This one is almost completely finished with the Suite CRM database, and you'll be able to see once that completes, that you'll be able to see that I take a snapshot and that the database has been replaced to that point in time of October 17th. Refresh my screen. And as you can see, I have removed, I put the time back to before I added that record for this demonstration. Now if I go to my Delphix console and I run a snapshot of the Suite CRM, quickly take a snapshot of it, yes, and you'll see that it's creating a snapshot on the October 17th. And that is pretty much our demo. Is there anything you would like to say right now? You're coming on mute. And there is our snapshot from 11:56. So we are back in time. If I go back to the Delphix lab, and I go back to, you'll see that this one has also been reset to October 17th. And that is our demo. Thank you very much for watching.
Yes.